everyone, it's Miss G from Kindergarten Kittens, and I'm actually here with my little kitty Sophia as well. So I just wanted to preview my video for you today because earlier this week my school had a new parent orientation, which obviously includes all of the kindergarten parents, or some of my kindergartners have older siblings, but most of the kindergarten parents as well. And so I give a little presentation about how to get ready for kindergarten at my school. I thought that especially new teachers would find this helpful, and also any parents out there that are watching this. So I have the video, and I will also put a link to my blog where the actual PowerPoint presentation is, and then you can download a copy for yourself and take notice of some of the tips, and you can feel free to use it in your classroom or at your school as well. It's really just a compilation of the things that I've thought about that I've really needed my kindergartners to have coming in, and other teachers have told me are important for them as well. So I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you think there's anything that I'm missing or that I should add for my presentation next year. All right, bye! Alright, good afternoon everybody. My name is Sasha Gervitz and I am a kindergarten teacher. And so I'm just going to tell you just some tips and ideas for getting your son or daughter ready for kindergarten here next year. My email is right here. It's in your packet. It's also on the school website. So any questions, feel free to email me. I'll probably be checking it about once a week throughout the summer. So if there's a little delay, just think I'm probably laying in the sun somewhere, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. First, we'll go over some language arts ideas, things you can be working on. So teaching suggestions for concepts of print. The number one priority is really just reading with your child every day. They need the exposure and the experience of holding a book, turning the pages, identifying what's the title page, where's the front cover, the back cover, what's the spine of the book. It's also important that you point to words as you read to them so that they are understanding that the sounds that come out of your mouth are associated with the print on the page, and also learning about tracking print, which is moving your finger under each word as you go along and read a story to them. Another thing that you want to be pointing out to your child, and this is something that we will obviously work on a lot in kindergarten, is the difference between a letter, a word, and a sentence. And noticing that a group of letters make up a word, and that groups of words make up sentences, and obviously they'll learn later about paragraphs as well. But you can be pointing this out to them. They can then identify it to you. They can show you when they find a period, when they find an exclamation point, a question mark. Again, these are all things that you just want them to be looking for, to be kind of honing in on as you're reading books with them. And make sure that this is something that you do all the time. The more exposure they have, the more fluent and prepared they are for this once they come to kindergarten in the fall. So next is letter recognition. Most of your children probably already recognize and can name most of the letters in the alphabet. But things that you can be doing over the summer to help reinforce letters are using magnetic letters. Many people have these on their refrigerators, big fun plastic letters. You can, I think, get them at like Target, maybe even Staples. You can also take these letters and put them on like a cookie sheet, which is magnetic, if you don't have a magnetic refrigerator. You can buy ABC or phonics flashcards that have the letters both uppercase and lowercase on them. And also it helps if you buy the phonics flashcards which have the pictures. So now they're also learning to associate a picture that has the beginning sound with the letter. When you are reading stories or signs or any sort of environmental print outside, you can have your child identify letters and point them out to you. Something fun to do is when you're driving, ask your child to look for a sign that has the same first letter as their name. They'll start pointing to them everywhere. They probably already do things like that. And as they continue into next school year, they'll start pointing out their sight words absolutely everywhere. It might even drive you nuts. But it's pretty cool to see their visual recognition gaining just as they practice it more and more. Phonemic awareness is when your child learns sounds. It's not connected to the visual letter, but obviously phonics, which is the visual piece of it, is connected to phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is all those rhyming little rhymes and like the Mother Goose nursery rhymes, lots of Raffi songs, probably are doing, I mean, your child's preschool is probably already doing with them, but again, should just continue to be reinforced as you go. Again, if you're reading a word like apple and there's a picture of an apple in the book, you're going to help them make the association of, here's the letter A and the sound is ah, and look, you can pull the picture in. And again, they're integrating what they're hearing and what they're seeing along with the text. You can also do lots of clapping games. Anytime you bring that kinesthetic motion into learning, it helps solidify it even more. So clapping out sounds, clapping syllables and words. Syllables is really fun, especially for names. Having them do your name, their siblings, their friends. Common words, again, apple, 2 syllables, ball, 1. Things like that. Or if you're reading a story and there's a fun word in the book, you can, again, have them clap the syllables for that as well. You can do rhyming games just as simple as, I'm thinking of a word that rhymes with pig. And maybe it's a competition to see which one of your children can think of a rhyming word faster. Did. You could also be thinking, or you could also say, well, I'm thinking of one in particular and see how many they can come up with. And then, of course, once they've thought of like 4 or 5, you can be like, oh, you got it, that's right. And again, just to get them practicing the rhyming more and more, this is really important for developing their ability to read. Listening to music like Dr. Jean or Stephen Gregg and Raffi, these songs all have rhyming words and also basic kindergarten concepts like counting, letter, sound knowledge, shapes. Pretty much anything that we learn in kindergarten can be found on a song by one of these artists. You can get them on Amazon, you can go to like Lakeshore Learning or Morrison School Supply, and they all also sell these CDs. Play them in the car, before bed, anytime. These are really, really wonderful and beneficial for the children. Reading comprehension. So you would think, we have kindergartners, we're not doing a lot with comprehension, but in fact we do. We do a ton of retelling, summarizing, comparing and contrasting. Really quite sophisticated comprehension just at a level. So things that you can be doing at home that you probably are actually already doing is talking about a story as you read it. The most important thing is after you finish a story, don't just close the book and say the end. Take a minute, talk about what happened at the beginning, the middle, the end of the story. What was the problem? How did the characters solve the problem? Who were the characters in the story? And where did the story take place? Really, what seems, kind of second nature to all of us, you just need to point out to them. And it's amazing how quickly they'll start picking up on this. And if you do this consistently, you won't even have to ask them anymore. They'll start telling you who the people are, who the characters are, and where it's happening. You could also have your child illustrate a story that you've read to them, even if it has illustrations in it. Again, this is tapping into the strength of a more artistic child. Any way that they can connect with the story or even respond to it. We have lots of great books that touch on social skills and emotional things like bullying, like teasing, sharing. So if you read a book like that, you might want to have them actually draw a picture in response to it. And again, they're able to then tell you about their picture. They're using their verbal skills and oral language to express themselves another way, art, oral expression, written language, whatever kind of connects the most with your child. Sight words are a big part of kindergarten, and so we learn 100 sight words in kindergarten here, and it's based off of the Dolch sight word list. You can find it online. I also will have the list for you for the beginning of next school year. But it's basically words that you can't sound out. Well, some of them you can, but most of them you cannot sound out. And they're the words that you find most frequently when you're reading. So words like the, or who, or where. Again, the kids just have to know them upon sight. But there's lots of fun things that you can do to help your child gain their sight word knowledge. One of my favorites is using sand or salt and just putting it in like the lid of a shoebox and then giving a sight word to your child, or maybe having an index card with the word written on it, and letting them use their finger to write in the sand or the salt the sight word. And again, you're connecting that tactile kinesthetic experience. You could do the same thing with shaving cream and putting shaving cream like on the kitchen table or the bathroom counter, wherever you want, and having your child write the words in the shaving cream. They can also draw a picture while they're there. And then, of course, when you're all done and you wipe it up, your counter is clean again. You can have flashcards again where you can play like a matching type game. So if you buy 2 sets, practice, put them all face down, mix them up, practice flipping and reading the sight words. When they get a match, they get to keep the pair. You can play Go Fish with sight words. All sorts of fun games. Again, if you go to any of the school supply stores, there's lots of just like really fun little games that you could be using and playing at home with your child. So take a break from, sorry, or pop them out of trouble for one night, and, or turn off the iPad for a night and do a fun, family board game that has sight words with it. Not that the iPad's bad. There's also amazing sight word games on the iPad and the computer as well, which I will have apps for at the end of this presentation. Okay, so letter writing and name writing. A lot of what we do, especially at the beginning of the year, is working on how we hold our pencil and forming letters and numbers in our names correctly. You can help me out in a huge, huge way by encouraging your child to hold their pencil between their fingers. There's 2 different types of grips. There's a tripod grip that uses your index finger, your thumb, and your middle finger, and you use the 3 fingers to hold it. You can also use a quadrupod grip that has 4 fingers. If their thumb is up on the pencil like this, they're holding the pencil like this, basically anything else that's kind of a non-standard form is just develop such bad habits, and their wrists cannot move as easily to form both lowercase and uppercase letters. For some kids, they already hold their pencil, the correct way naturally, and so that's really simple. But if your child already has kind of a different grip, I highly recommend ordering a Stepro grip. You can find them online, and you can find them at teaching and learning stores. It's in my presentation, and practice with it all summer long. We use them in the classroom. Every child has one in their toolbox, and they use it until they're proficient at holding their pencil correctly. The other thing too is if your child is writing a lot of letters, and particularly if they're writing their name, work with them to make sure they're doing letters from top to bottom. I still have some little guys that are writing their S's starting from the bottom, their C's from the bottom. If you can fix that now before they come to kindergarten, or encourage them at least, again, it'll just be way more pleasant and easier for them with their writing fluency. Some things that you can do to help them is using wide lined paper. You can write both capital and lowercase letters using a highlighter. Your child can trace over those with a pencil to copy your writing. You can do the same thing then with their name. And then once they're neat at tracing your letters, you could let them write it next to the highlighted letter. And finally, once they no longer need the support, you can take it away and they can write the letters independently. Same thing for writing their name. It's likely that your child writes their name in all capitals or in a combination of letters right now. Again, we're going to work on this, especially the first month of kindergarten, so they understand that there's a capital at the beginning and then it follows with lowercase letters. But you could start now by doing the highlighted name, letting them trace over it so that they know what the lowercase letters in their name look like. Something you also can do is to type your child's name in a word processor in Comic Sans in a size 48 or larger, and it makes an outline. You can actually do the outline effect. And then they can use markers to trace their name on the inside, and we'll call this rainbow writing. So it's kind of a fun thing to do where they're practicing their letters or practicing writing their name, but it's not just so boring like tracing it. They get to use all the colors and make a rainbow out of their name. Moving on to the math concepts. Counting and writing to 100. So having your child be able to both recognize and write numbers starting in increments of 5. Again, your children probably already do some of this. Important to pay attention that when they're counting in a specific order, smaller to larger. If they're ready to, they can count backwards once they have their numbers going forward. They will count all the way to 100 in kindergarten. So go ahead and just keep counting with them now. Be very careful about their pronunciation though, so that things like 13 and 30 are not confused, because it's hard to break that habit once it's established. Once your kid is really proficient at counting to 20, you want to stop and actually introduce the numerals too, so that when they're counting, they can be pointing to each number as they go. We want to associate the visual recognition with it as well. And you can also, same with writing the letters in the name, once this number goes with this many. And you can do this with pennies, food, anything that will get your child excited that, they want to count. Little toy cars, anything like that, crayons. You also can have your child draw a picture with a certain number of objects and then label it, 5 cars, or 2 balloons, or 3 people in my family. Also, it's important to be using certain mathematical language, things like more and less, greater than, less than. We're also moving into, right now in the class, taller, shorter, longer, shorter, bigger, smaller. So relative sizes as well as comparing. You can have your child organize things for you in the bathroom, like line up all the bottles from smallest to largest. Anything that's kind of fun. A lot of what we do in kindergarten is very real world. There's a lot of practical application to what they're learning. So have them help you out at home in whatever ways that they can. Same thing with location words. You can play Simon Says to do the location words. Simon Says, put your hands on top of your head. Simon Says, put your hands behind your knees. Things like that. You can do the same thing when you go to the playground to play, like, go hide under the slide. Or, will you please stand on top of the balance beam, so that they're having, again, the experience of hearing this language and having the real life application of what those words mean. You can also do I Spy to practice this concept. You can play I Spy to identify colors, letters, numbers, shapes, pretty much anything can be done with that game. So as with colors, constantly talks about shapes when you're describing things in the environment. We use the word rhombus instead of diamond, so please support the use of that type of mathematical language. You could just, as you're driving, point out, well, what shape do you think that sign is? Or, in church, there's lots of great examples as well. Like, look at that window, see if you can find a triangle in that stained glass window. And then you can play I Spy again with all the shapes as well. When you're reading books that have illustrations, you can have them point out shapes in their illustrations. You could have them draw a picture and challenge them to use a certain number of shapes, or use shapes that in particular. See if you can make a house using 8 rectangles and see what they come up with. You can also practice patterns when you're using shapes and colors. Again, cereal is a great idea, especially, not that I'm encouraging sugary colored cereals, but if you have, for example, Fruit Loops or something like that, you could have them do a pattern with the colored Fruit Loops. Or again, if you have counters or little toy cars with crayons, anything like that, and helping them develop and especially an A-B pattern, so like red, blue, or ABC patterns, red, blue, yellow, and the repetition of that. And they'll start recognizing patterns all around them. This is something that we typically do early on in the school year, so if they've already done it at home with you, it'll be really familiar, and they'll feel accomplished when they're able to do it in the classroom. So then I also just have, on the last slide, different educational apps that you could download for your iPad, iPhone, or iPod. I particularly like the Teach Me Kindergarten site, and then Starfall ABC, sorry, there's an extra L in there, is another great website that you can also find. And the last website, abcya.com, has kindergarten-specific and pre-K specific games that are learning type games for them to play, which are really engaging, and my students, we use it during our designated computer time, and they really love it. And I think that's all I have for you today. So, if you have any questions in particular about anything that you saw up here, feel free to come up and see me. Any generalized questions that you would want to ask right now? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thanks for listening. And it's great to see you all, and I look forward to our next school year.